Hello, today we're joined by Sophie Eustace from Creative Crawley, a creative arts charity that's been doing some really powerful work in their community. I'm Karen Jefford, and I'm here with my co-host Alessandro Calzolari. Welcome to the podcast and the Human Advantage. Between us, we spend a lot of time exploring how empathy and clarity, trust shapes stronger partnerships. And along with that, communication. And Sophie's work sits right at the heart of that conversation. Creative Crawley isn't just about putting art on walls or running as events. It's about creating space where people feel they belong, where creativity becomes part of everyday life rather than something separate. What I love about the work that we did previously or prior to our podcast with Sophie is there's ambition. But also honesty around the pressures that charities face right now. Funding landscapes are changing, expectations are rising, and yet the need for that connection has never been stronger. Today's conversation isn't about polished success. It's all about what it takes to actually build partnerships, tell your stories well, and keep going, whatever the weather, to create a path that isn't always straightforward. Sophie, it's really good to have you here. Thank you for joining us here at the Human Advantage.
Thank you very much for having me, Karen.
Thank you.
Sophie, I loved on your website that you've got everything from 3 to 83 years old.
That's right, Karen. Yes, our programme is really wide and varied, and most importantly, it's led by the people of Crawley. So when we set up Creative Crawley in 2021, we kind of listened to what was going on in Crawley. We saw all the amazing grassroots activity, but we spent a lot of time talking with local residents about what they wanted to see change in Crawley and how arts and culture could help facilitate that. So we've done all sorts of things. We've made 6 murals around the town. We've run a fashion show, which showcased the work of local designers, and the models in the fashion show, the youngest was 16 and the oldest was 83. So that gives you a kind of sense of the range of people we're working in. For those of you who don't know Crawley well, it's quite a big town. It's a new town. It's got its town centre, and then there are 16 neighbourhoods clustered around, and there are quite disparate communities. It's incredibly diverse, over 100 languages spoken in Crawley. Wow. And a lot of our programme is really about trying to connect people together, to give opportunity where there isn't any, or where there are barriers to engaging in arts and culture. So that's what we're all about. And it's quite a big year-round, very varied programme, mainly free or pay what you decide, to remove any kind of financial obstacles to people engaging. And we're quite young as a charity. We're really quite new. And it seems that everything we're doing for the first time.
Brilliant. I think connected to what you share, I have a lot of questions that I want to ask you. But one thing is that we all know that we are in a very challenging financial climate. And with the funding climate getting tougher, what do you think, Sophie, what does urgency look like for your day-to-day when it comes to sharing your work, sharing your mission?
I mean, the urgency is really to ensure that the programme is having its intended impact. So we're never doing anything just tokenistically. We are one of our key funders is Arts Council England, and a huge thank you to them. We have just received a new 3-year funding agreement for a programme called Creative People and Places, which is a long-term place-based programme which targets areas of least cultural engagement in the country. So there are 46 of these type projects around. So we need to be delivering against that funding agreement, which is all about everyday creativity for those who aren't engaged. We really need to get better at telling our story and making the case for arts and culture and what it can do, more than just making people happy. We know the economic impact it can have on places which are thriving creatively. We know health and well-being. We know kind of regeneration. We know all these things are true. When you're working for a really tiny charity like ours, we're so busy, sort of boots on the ground, getting on with delivering the work. One of our challenges is having the capacity, but also the tools really to share the story and the impact we're having. That's what feels most urgent for us at the moment, is making the case for arts and culture. We have amazing allies and supporters such as Arts Council England, who are critical in terms of that subsidy, but we know there's a lot more we could be doing in terms of partnership building with the business community, and it's getting that kind of message across. What can we do?
You describe a challenge that most organisations have. When you're in it, the passion and the dedication by the staff is there.
Yeah.
But I mean, you've already identified, you know, in Crawley, there's 100 different languages. It's such a diverse community. You know, how would you usually describe the work of Creative Crawley, you know, to somebody outside your sector? How do you describe who you are and what you do?
Well, we're just trying to bring high quality creativity to a town where there's very little going on. There's an amazing grassroots kind of sector, but a lot of people have a very negative opinion about Crawley, and it's very transient. People travel through it, but yet it's halfway between London and Brighton. It's so well positioned. It's got Gatwick Airport. There are extraordinary people in Crawley. There are amazing artists who live in Crawley, quite often have to come out of Crawley, you know, go to London, go to Brighton to make their work. It's a very young population, and a lot of young people. There's a mass exodus. Anyone who's interested in cultural industries will leave as soon as they can to seek work elsewhere. So we're really trying to change that narrative by being visible, by making things happen. We've got a kind of network of Crawley creatives, so trying to bring people together so that there is a kind of cultural hub. At the moment, we're very, very fortunate to be working in partnership with County Mall, the shopping centre, and we have a big shopping unit. It's on the second floor opposite Primark. For anyone who's in Crawley, come and see what we're doing. We've turned it into a theatre, a gallery. There's a recording studio. Excuse me. We're also working in partnership with Audio Active, who are an amazing music organisation working with young people to run that space. And so it's by demonstrating what's possible, what happens when you put creativity into the heart of a community.
I know from working with young people, they're not very good always with articulating how they feel or the message they want to get across. And music and creativity, and I've done work with, you know, primary school children. Yeah. The work around creative drawing or painting or that expression is so powerful, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're also working really closely with schools because we know that, you know, to reach young people, arts and creativity, unfortunately, is being squeezed out of the curriculum. Whatever we can do to kind of inject that back in, we are. We made the Book of Crawley, which is an alternative guidebook to Crawley, written by Year 5 young people. So, and it's brilliant and hilarious and wonderful and aspirational about what Crawley can be. If you're a resident, you'll find some very surprising facts out about Crawley, and it's a really playful, absolutely child-led project where those young people spent a whole term working various things, drawing, writing, interviewing each other about their favourite places in Crawley and their dreams and hopes for Crawley. And we launched it at the town hall in collaboration with Crawley Borough Council, and the planning department came down to see what we were doing and found it really illuminating in terms of where young people hang out, what they like, what, you know, the bits of Crawley that they're really connected to. They made a flag for Crawley, so it was all about that kind of pride of place and identity through the eyes of a child, led by some absolutely superb artists who have that in their practice. So at the moment, we're planning a tour of dance work to playgrounds. It will be the 3rd year that we've run that in collaboration with the Place in London. So we're also really about bringing really excellent partners into the frame, bringing really extraordinary work into Crawley. And then also we've got a strand called Come With Us, where we take Crawley residents out to see things. So we've been to the Barbican Centre, to Regent's Park Theatre, we've been to Chichester Festival Theatre, all sorts of different art forms, just to show people what's possible. Because if you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point you raise. You know, how easy is it, because you've got the challenge of the diversity of the community. You're reaching lots of different age groups, you know, different audiences from, as we've already said, 3 to 83. How easy is it to articulate your impact to bring in those partners?
I think that's probably one of our main challenges, really, that because the programme is so diverse and wide-reaching, we're not just a specialist youth organisation. We're trying, in theory, we're trying to do everything for everybody. We really rely on our community partners, so partners like the Free Shop in Bewbush, which is their food bank, their Broadfield Community Centre, the people who are absolutely embedded in those communities to kind of win the trust of those people. And it's a long-term project. So this is not the kind of project you can pop up and do for 6 months. It's really about boots on the ground, finding out who the gatekeepers are, testing things. So we do a lot of our program approaches a kind of pilot model where we might try something. So we've just done a series of garment making workshops off the back of the fashion show, where lots of people wanted to carry on working with textiles, and we brought a group of Ukrainian and Afghani refugees together, a women-only space, where together they made this beautiful garment. And it was a test, really, with those very, very limited English being spoken and two very kind of separate communities of people, whether they could collaborate together in an artistic kind of project. And it was incredibly successful. So that was a kind of test, and we like to do that. We don't we were very careful with our resource and how we kind of expend it to make sure that we are having the biggest impact. But as I said, then telling that story back, so that garment's now on display with the kind of story of how it was made in our shopping centres unit. So if anyone comes in, they'll be able to see that. But we're really aware we need more presence on social media. We need to be making the case. We need to, bring the businesses on board. We've got an excellent relationship with the Manor Royal Business Improvement District. They've been a key partner throughout. And one of our murals is on one of the gateways to Manor Royal on the Hazelwick flyover, which many people would have seen. 60,000 cars drive past it every day. But it takes time. It takes time to build trust, and the agenda for arts and culture can really be kind of pushed to the sidelines when, other kind of science or there are other drivers for people making decisions about where they put their support.
I think in terms of challenges, you mentioned like diversity, Karen, which I believe many times we try to help everyone, but we know that maybe like a young person doesn't speak the same language maybe of a 70 years old. What I'm very, very curious is, do you feel also the challenge? Now I'm thinking about my expertise, as I mentioned at the beginning, is more from a psychological marketing point of view. Sometimes, and you mentioned many times, the murals, like something that we can see, but sometimes we have maybe imagination, decision-making, well-being that are all intangible things. Do you also feel like there is the challenge to convey a message when something is intangible versus something that is visible, like murals?
Yeah, and I think it's finding ways to tell the story. So just staying with the murals, for example, someone very high up in West Sussex Police said that one of our murals had changed how a neighbourhood felt and the kind of safety of that place. So you need advocates like that. You need the kind of evidence together that not only are you making something look far brighter and more attractive, you're actually changing how it feels to live there. And we have so many stories like that. When the artist was that particular mural was in Bewbush, and when the artist was painting it, someone was racing off to do their shopping and came back with a box of chocolates for the artist and said, "Thank you so much. This is such a horrible underpass, and you're actually making, you're improving our neighborhood." So it's about those individual stories and responses and building the kind of case studies around the work. But our issue is we're trying to do so much at pace with so many different sorts of people, but it's really through the words of others that I think we can prove our impact. So it might be, a head teacher telling us that the young person in this particular session never vocalizes or joins in, and there they are having the most wonderful time. Those
powerful, aren't they?
Very powerful, very powerful. But and kind of data around footfall. We need to get better at looking at the kind of how arts and culture can check. We know in terms of regeneration and kind of the economic impact that arts and culture can have. There's lots that can be said. It comes down to capacity, really.
How many Sophies have you got at Creative Crawley? Because your passion really comes across. You know, we talk about, you know, people buying people and human connection, but I can really feel the enthusiasm, you know, the way that you're talking. And
well, we're so lucky.
Sophie's within your organisation.
Yeah, I'm this level enthusiasm, honestly. Some of my colleagues, we are all, I think the wonderful thing and the way that the charity runs is that we're all very much boots on the ground. You know, we're all the face of the charity, and we're all out and about meeting people. It really is about human connection. So we have our playmakers, so the kind of the decisions that are made around our program from local residents, we call those people our playmakers. They're a kind of network of volunteers. There's probably a core, maybe 40 who come very, very regularly to things. All ages, all backgrounds, and we're like a bit of a family, really, and we're absolutely have taken the time. Our community producer is absolutely wonderful. She's out meeting groups all the time, so it's very much community engagement driven. The whole program is about people, and if something's not working and not, you know, if people are not being inspired or challenged at times, because that's what arts and culture is about. Yes. It's about creating space sometimes for difficult conversations or new things, you know. If it's not working, we know we're listening to feedback all the time, and we're kind of pivoting our work around what we're hearing. So it's a really fabulous place to work, and I think everyone has to be really committed, because it's very much about the people in Crawley. And Louise Blackwell, who set up the organisation, was born in Crawley and then left, you know, went off to uni and came back and just realised that, you know, you've literally got Brighton on the doorstep, but there's very, very little that's going on, particularly for artists who want to kind of establish their practice there.
Sophie, you talk about pivoting and being agile. How do you as a team make sure you're communicating, you're all singing from the same hymn sheet? You know, your boots on the ground, you're all busy, you're all doing the same job, but how do you make sure that those new stories get translated in the same voice? Is communication, joined up working easy, or what do you do to navigate that?
Yeah, it can be really challenging. And one thing that we're fantastically well supported by Crawley College. We have an office in kind from them on their campus, which is wonderful. But we've also got we've got one now, but 2 pop-up spaces. And so for a very small team, we've been working across 3 sites this year, as well as being out in the community delivering the project. So it's meant that things have become quite fragmented. And we realized very quickly that things were drifting, that people, well, of course, we're all, you know, we've got lots of systems in place for how we stay on track, but we've established, plus you've then got working from home, which is absolutely wonderful in terms of supporting everyone's life work balance and caring responsibilities. But we've got a kind of Tuesday together in the office now, and then a Thursday packed full of meetings. So we've got these kind of 2 points in the week where everybody comes together, and we have a reflection session on a Tuesday where we look at the week that's just gone by and lessons that we've learnt. And then very, you know, strictly every quarter, we reflect on what we've just delivered, what we've learned, what worked. And so we're always, it's an action learning project. We're always folding that learning in and thinking, oh, we're never going to do that again in that place at that time. Nobody came, or we were expecting 70 people to come. We had 300. What happened? You know, so just trying to aggregate what, you know, the changes that we need to make to have the most impact. And I think we learn a lot from failure. Some of the things we've done really haven't worked, you know, and there's a really generous kind of culture in the organisation to just, you know, that's nobody's fault. We all went, you know, we tried something, it didn't work. So what do we do next time?
Yeah. In fact, just before the call, Alessandro and I were talking about being brave to say no.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's so easy in the charity sector to say, there's the pot funding. Yes, let's go for it. We'll create a project around it. But actually, it's staying true to your values and your core mission. Yeah. And actually, when you are a small team, you can't say yes to everything. Yeah. So, you know, how do you prioritise projects, Sophie?
Well, we're in the process of writing a new business plan, or refreshing our business plan, which is really very helpful. So we've got, you know, we're setting ourselves targets, and we've got these pillars of our programme. along with our values and theory of change. And so we're really tying everything back to those, the kind of foundational, why are we here, what are we doing, and what impact is it going to have? I think the tension comes between, you know, that 7-year-old in a classroom in a primary school in Broadfield, and then this meeting where we can be part of the West Sussex network and we can be championing Crawley, you know, and the kind of bigger strategizing and the advocacy that we're doing about arts and culture in our town on a bigger stage, and then the absolutely essential work that's happening, you know, within communities. And as a small team, we're trying to sort of stretch across both of those agendas. And so we have to keep reflecting. We've just done a little bit of training actually about how to prioritize, which was very illuminating in terms of, you know, and sharing what our priorities are with each other. This is a kind of new way of really openly saying, here are the crunch points, you know, and trying to not over program, trying to think about how things fall in place across the week, because a lot of our work will be in the evenings and at weekends. Obviously, that's when people are free who are working. So we could very, very easily burn out and overstretch. And I think as a new charity, where there's been a lot of amazing opportunities that, you know, through things like the shared prosperity funding, so there was Towns Fund money that came through Crawley Borough Council to us, which enabled us to set up the temporary spaces. You know, you have to grab those opportunities, but sometimes the pace at which you're trying to work is not sustainable long term. So you'll see on our website, we've got a very, very busy a few weeks now to the end of March, and then we're going to consciously have a bit of downtime to reflect and to calibrate, and before we launch ourselves into the next bit of the programme. So it's trying to build in those peaks and troughs. And we did nothing over last August, and we just gave people an extended holiday in the team. It's usually a really busy time for arts and culture. It's kind of festival season, but we consciously decided that we needed just to stop. But it's difficult to do that, really difficult.
It is.
Yes, I can confirm.
So Sophie, you talk about, you know, I love your idea of every week you get together, you have reflections of what, you know, lessons learned, what went well. When you're making those decisions, is that a team decision, or does somebody have the overarching, yes, we're doing that, no, we're doing that? Because what often we see is departments, or like the funding department or the marketing department, are doing their work and working in silos. So it's really positive to hear, excuse me, that you're coming together as a team. But how easy is it to make that decision? Is everybody contributing, or what happens there in, yes, we do that project or not?
Yeah, there's always a conversation about it. At the end of the day, yeah, it'll be, you know, Louise Blackwell and myself, we try not to be hierarchical. We've got a fantastic board of trustees. We've also got a consortium of local organisations who are overseeing the Creative People and Places programme. So it's quite, you know, there are a lot of voices in the mix. There are a lot of seats at the table, and so it is absolutely in collaboration. But I at the end of the day, somebody does have to make the decision. But I think we'll never. Nothing is ever railroaded through on one person's agenda, because it has to fit the remit of our mission in terms of serving the people of Crawley. But there's an ongoing programming kind of log of ideas coming in, and we have a program and operations meeting weekly where we go through everything that's coming up and everything that's on the horizon. So there's quite an elaborate process going on behind doors that nobody would see, which is why suddenly something will surface.
That's to describe us all as swans, isn't it, Sophie?
Yeah, that's right. And as you know, with organising anything relying on external partners and dates and, you know, weather, there are so many moving kind of bits of the puzzle that it'll end up being, when that, you know, is it that amazing artist that we want to get to come to Crawley? Well, they're available here. What can we build around it? But we're, I'd say it's complicated.
Yeah. And so, you know, how do we simplify that? I mean, you talk about how important partnerships are for you. You know, what tends to be present from the beginning to know that actually, yes, we need to put the time and effort into this partnership?
I'll give you an example. We had we ran a festival called Around the Lake in Tilgate Park, and we had an incredible opportunity to work with Luke Jerram, who's an internationally renowned artist who you may have seen Gaia, his huge earth that was suspended above the Strictly ballroom floor at one point. Anyway, huge, big scale, kind of Olympic style, you know, incredible. And he came to us with the idea of a piece that could be on Tilgate Lake, which is a beautiful lake, and Crawley is an absolutely gorgeous park. And a lot of people had said to us that they wanted a project to happen on the water, that the lake was pretty underused, so we had this perfect alignment of this incredible artist and this and the community really wanting to push this idea forward. So at that point, it's kind of okay, right? Well, he's available then. You know, the cogs start go in motion, but the key partner, one of the key partners was Crawley Borough Council and the permission to use the park. Then it was getting all the kind of safety regulations in order. There's a kind of chain of things that then need to happen from a producing point of view to make that possible. We also wanted to really bring the voices of Crawley people into that project, because what happened is you go and row on the lake in these beautifully decorated rowboats, and you listen to a story about migration or travel or what fascinating stories from around the world. And so we commissioned the artist to make one that was told by a Crawley resident about her coming to live in Crawley and traveling across continents to get here. So that took time and planning, and that felt really important to us. So it's also just constantly reviewing what's the most important thing about this and not losing sight of that, and making sure the partners are on board in order to facilitate it. And we've got it wrong at times, where we've got the wrong partner, or we've got the wrong location, or actually we were hoping to work with this community group and now they're not available. You know, so that's the kind of alchemy of a creative project, when it all lines up and you've got the perfect partners in place, the timing's right, you're not rushing it. But it's
how often does that happen?
I mean, yeah, we're pretty good at it. I think we've got a really experienced team who've got expertise in arts and culture and have worked in all sorts of settings. When it goes wrong is when, quite often, if the partnership isn't quite right, and the kind of
and what things have happened then? Has it been a breakdown of communication early on expectations, or
or you know, it could be as simple as your kind of lead contact leaving. And suddenly you're not, what you're talking about in terms of human connection, you know, you both go into this very, very committed, and then they step out of that organization, and suddenly, you know, we've been lucky that hasn't, but professionally, there's been plenty of experiences I've had where it's just not quite the right fit. And in our experience, it's better to wait then until you find the right fit. But sometimes, as you know, everything is lined up, you're ready to go, you've got the funding, that's when you really need to say, no, we're going to pause. We're not running this project in the way that we need to in this model. We need to stop, and we need to think about how to do it better. But sometimes, you know, when you get quite far down the tracks, it's very, very difficult to roll back from that. But Around the Lake was an absolutely joyous experience, and for us it was a kind of biggest profile event, really. Over 3,000 people came, and 500 people experienced the crossings piece on the water, many of whom had never been on Tilgate Lake before. It was a real sort of step change for us as an organisation, being able to show what we could do. People loved it.
It sounds like a beautiful concept, or a beautiful project on the lake, which is already tranquil. Then you've got somebody telling you a story, and if we're lucky in the UK, there was a bit of sunshine as well.
There was, actually.
Friday. You've created something very magical.
Yeah, the only issue we had.
No, I'm coming.
Oh, well, that's been and gone now. The issue we had, it was quite windy, and thank goodness we had 2 lifeguards, because people kept it's a massive lake. People were just drifting right to the other side of the lake.
Really? Oh, wow.
Because nobody really knows how to row boats, we discovered. Anyway, yeah, we learned a lot. Honestly, some of the things in my job that I get to do are crazy sometimes, trying on life jackets and briefing lifeguards, In
the charity, we do everything from cleaning the toilets to hands-on and delivering the services to oh, actually, we've got a HR matter as well today. And
yeah,
very much team effort, and it is built on relationships. And I think, you know, you talk about if people leave, that knowledge transfer and that joined up piece of working is invaluable, isn't it?
it is, absolutely. Yeah.
I think I share with you, Karen, that I remember when we were like working together on what we are building, I always said we need to build something that is transferable, whether we are doing the 2 of us, the 10 of us, or we're going to give to someone else, whether they are going to leave the company or not. We need to have a structure that everyone can deliver, and that allowed us to speak the same language, in particular when we have a diversification of people, like the people that you are helping. When we have a clarity and we can say, okay, you are responsible for this, you are responsible for the other one, it's much easier to speak the same language as this for this group and the other one, rather than try to help everyone without any kind of transferable structure. Because sometimes inside of here, the clarity is amazing, but then the team doesn't have the same level of clarity as us.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's,
Sophie, I'm intrigued. Have you come from a charity background or an arts background? You know, was there a moment where the work that you do now changed from being more than a job? And I say that because I spoke earlier about how your passion comes across.
Yeah, I mean, I think, to be honest with you, anyone who works in the arts and cultural sector, it's more than a job.
Right.
Because we all really believe it's infectious, and it's obviously, you know, it's impacted your life in a really positive way.
Are you an artist yourself, Sophie, or?
I'm not an artist. No, I'm not. I'm really a theatre producer. So I did that for a long time, where I worked for a really interesting organisation. And I when I first left university, I studied English and drama. I worked at the Young Vic Theatre. This was back a long time ago in the 90s, but I really learned there about they had an ensemble of actors, and anyone who's been to that space, it's a very intimate, beautiful theatre for storytelling. And my role was working in schools in Lambeth and Southwark, which a lot of those areas have now become a lot more gentrified than they were, but I was working with amazing young people who had the chance to come to the theatre. Anyway, so I saw firsthand what theatre could do. And I've been working in the sector ever since. So I think what's also an organisation like Creative Crawley, because it's so much about the people that we're reaching, and it's so much about that place. You have to really believe in what you're doing. But the wonderful thing is you can see it with your own eyes. You know, when you see people coming back in again, or so we've got an open day on Wednesday. Anyone who's around 18th of February, we've got an open day, and we're expecting hundreds of people to come into that space, many of whom are just going about their daily lives, shopping, and they might hear some amazing. We've got an incredible African Night Fever, West African diaspora music organisation who'll be playing, and all sorts of things going on in there, and just seeing people encounter something like that when they're just going to Primark to buy some socks is the magic of it, really, because
you're transporting them into another world, aren't you? Or educating them into something perhaps they wouldn't otherwise think of or hear of or try.
Yeah, and they wouldn't necessarily want or have £50 to spend on a theatre ticket and need to go into an auditorium like that. So that we're very, very much about culture being part of everyday life and being available to all. And what we're finding about our shopping unit is that people will cross that threshold easily, because it's not at all intimidating or doesn't feel, do you know what I mean? There's no, it's not a cultural space that might be, if you're not used to going into a gallery or any theatre. So that's what's really lovely, because you're meeting all sorts of people.
People often say, don't they, they might be an introvert, but actually once they put on the mask or the uniform, they can suddenly perform. You hear a lot of these musicians, don't they? Very shy people, but put them on the stage with them in a mic. And woohoo, they're this bright, bold, brave character that you wouldn't have, on paper, wouldn't have said that they're this calm, very quiet, shy individual. So,
But also, a lot of people say, oh, I'm not creative. And then you talk to them about what they do, And it might be that they go rambling, or that they're really into gardening, or they're really good at cooking. And, you know, and our definition of creativity is not, you know, art form led. It's about imagination, and it's about skill, and it's about seeing the world in a different way and reflecting on that. So it's really fascinating how broad that definition actually is, and how people are very quick to say, oh, that's not for me. But actually, yeah, we do really well at seeming to hook people in who might consider something not for them. I guess because a lot of our program is free and really easily accessible. It's happening where people are. They'll kind of take a chance on it.
So what's the aspirations then, Sophie? You're doing some amazing things in Crawley. You know, if we have this conversation, say in a year's time, has, you know, Creative Crawley, cookie cutter, done that model, and you're putting it in another village or another town? Or, you know, what's the goal? You're talking about you're currently writing, you know, the business plan.
Yeah.
What I think things are in the pipeline.
Well, we really want to position Crawley as somewhere externally perceived as that amazing things are going on. We really want to engage more people. We've only really scratched the surface in terms of you know, the numbers of people we've managed to engage with yet. We don't want Crawley to be seen as a kind of cultural wasteland, and we really want to be part of a very thriving creative community there, and to facilitate that. We'd love that then to be a blueprint for other parts of the country, but we're and we really want to champion for Crawley in the kind of West Sussex agenda, because as we know, there's kind of local government devolution coming down the track. So it'd be very interesting to see how that plays out. So we'll be waving the flag for Crawley. Yeah, it's about doing more and better and reaching deeper, I think. So thanks to Arts Council, we've got at least 3 more years of funding to continue that work. And there are amazing, you know, there's best practice examples like Heart of Glass and St Helens, who've been doing this work for 10 years. And it's extraordinary what they've achieved in that time. So we know we've got, you know, peers in the sector who have made really phenomenal change in their area, in the kind of infrastructure of their area, the cultural infrastructure. So it's going to take time, but that's what we're committed to. Yeah, we're not going anywhere else.
Okay. So would it be fair to say that this is a kind of a period of stabilizing, or is there a little bit of growth? You know, what kind of messages are running through the organisation right now?
Well, we're building up to what we hope will be a really big and quite high profile festival next year. So everything at the moment is leading up to that event. It will be a pilot version of it, but if we wanted to have sort of national significance, and we're working with some extraordinary partners on that. That's very exciting. So in a way, you know, incrementally, we started off and a lot of our work was completely invisible. Then we started making the murals with local people. Then we ran around the Lake Festival. Now we've taken over the County Mall, you know, space. Incrementally, our profile is getting more recognised. So that's the next step, really, this festival at scale, where we want to put artists in residence in different neighbourhoods, and we want some big wow events. We're hoping to program some international outdoor works. You know, we're hoping to get press attention. We're really hoping to show what's possible in an event like that. So there's a lot of money to raise. There's a lot of partners to put in place. It's what I was saying about all the ingredients, lining them up. Can we do it by next summer? That's the challenge at the moment. So we're all very focused on that. And then it will be seeing, you know, potentially that could become either a biannual thing, or, you know, is that going to be the thing that kind of defines our lasting legacy in Crawley, that event then continues? We'll see.
And is that then, you know, when we think about sustainability, you've got, you know, the reassurance from current funding, which is for 3 years, and do you work hard for 3 years and think, oh my God, you know, what's next? How do you build that resilient, agile organisation while all of this new work's happening alongside the core?
Well, we're constantly looking for funding, you know, so we're approaching trusts and foundations. We're also we're working with a consultant to look at high net worth individuals, to look at that kind of individual giving strand potentially. We're hoping with a festival of this kind of scale, we will secure some considerable business sponsorship. So it could be the kind of, you know, the gateway to that kind of income stream for our financial model. We're always, Louise and I particularly, looking at the strategy, planning ahead. You know, we're thinking about 29 at the moment, because that's the end of that funding cycle and what happens then. So it's always a juggle between delivering the immediate and then looking to the future, so that we don't fall off the edge of the funding agreement. But it's not an easy climate at the moment, as you know. It's not.
And I think while you are a small team and it's boots on the ground, you've got to have that someone or a small team that's got that helicopter view. But it's very difficult to have that, isn't it, when the staff you've got are all doing.
Absolutely. And we really rely on the expertise we've got on our board. You know, we've got an excellent kind of governance structure to keep us thinking in that way. So we'll see. It's a very exciting year next year, because Crawley is 80.
Oh, so really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Probably, Karen, this feels like a good place to pause. We have a lot of things that we might discuss. So, Sophie, if people want to help you to have this national significance, how they can help you, how they can stay in touch with your company, your charity?
Well, follow us on social media and have a look, you know, join the mailing list. You can reach out to me personally, Sophie at creativecrawley.com. We're happy to hear from anybody who's interested in helping us or spreading the word. Come to an event.
Yes, that is the most important thing. So thank you to joining us, Sophie, today, to give this time to share your passion before the work that you're doing.
And I think the nice thing is, Sophie, art is a conversation starter. You know, the three of us could look at a piece of art and, you know, articulate it, or, you know, see it in very different pairs of eyes. So, you know, we talk about people in a good way connect. Creative Ways is a brilliant starter, isn't it? A conversation starter.
Absolutely.
So thank you for sharing the inside world and your goals and aspirations. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie.